406.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 411 from 406. My name is Chewie. I'm joined once again by my brother from another mother, Mr. Pip. And tonight, for the first time ever, we've got another 406er on the podcast. Mr. Jeff Tyler, how are you, sir?
Oh, outstanding. Thank you so much. Honored to be here. Appreciate the invite.
This is so much fun. This is so cool. First, let's get this out of the way. You are our first official special guest that we've ever had on this podcast.
Ever.
So
Yes.
I'm not saying
Wow,
you should feel honored, but you should probably feel honored because this just hasn't happened before.
Well, I know Spotify and certain platforms give awards to some of their people. Is there a plaque? Is all I want to know. You can see I've got some things on the wall. I could sure use a plaque. I don't know. Whatever. You guys spitball it.
Man, he's pretty arrogant. Like he's been on here for 3 seconds and he wants an award already.
A major award. It's
A major award.
When we get the major award, we'll make sure that we get you one for sure.
It will definitely be in the shape of a leg with some.
Do I get to do any commercial reads for your sponsors?
You know what? We will find a sponsor just so you can read it. How about that?
That'd be great.
Yes, I would love to pre-record a few. Free of service.
So as we chatted about, I think it was on the last episode of the podcast, Jeff and I had an opportunity, but couple 3 weeks ago now, to catch up. And then, Pip and I were talking and we're like, oh my God, well, let's have Jeff on, the next episode of the podcast. And I'm very glad that we were able to make it happen. And we've got, in addition to kind of some 406 catching up to do, I think we've got a pretty cool topic that we're going to talk about tonight. So I don't know if you want to go right into that or if you want to just kind of let's catch up for a while as well. I'll leave it up to you.
Let's let it breathe for just a minute or two, because I think the first question that all of our millions and millions of fans are asking right now is, who the fuck is Jeff Tyler? Like, who is this guy? How do we know this guy? And what is his relationship to 406? I think our people need some answers right now.
I think I need answers to that because a lot of college was a blur after I met you guys.
But okay, well, how about this? I'll start with my first memory of you, Jeff.
Okay,
and this will tie in.
I think I was getting ready to say it. I know where you're going.
Well, then by all means, I talk too much anyways. You go for it.
We were at a bar. I could picture the bar.
You remember which one?
The name of it.
It's Sports.
Sports. Mm-hmm. We were at Sports on Kirkwood.
Mm-hmm. Kilroy Sports.
Yep. We're the Kilroy Sports. And I think I had seen Dawn.
Correct.
And was catching up with Dawn. I went to high school with Dawn, who was in the friend group and in the 406 and IU days. And I was catching up with Dawn, who was with you in a group.
Mm-hmm.
And in short order, you and I were talking about Sammy Hagar. And I think I pulled a Sammy Hagar guitar pick out of my leather bifold wallet, which I am not a bifold wallet carrier anymore. That was the last one, I think, or close to. And I pulled this flimsy guitar pick that I had caught at a Sammy Hagar concert out to show you, because nobody I ever met in my life other than Todd Christ, who you know, Matt,
I do,
had ever been impressed by that guitar pick. And you were floored by it.
I've never instantly loved and hated somebody all in one fell swoop, because I don't remember how we got on the topic of Van Halen, but eventually a lot of my conversations around that time of my life led around that direction. So when you're like, yeah, I'm a Sammy Hagar fan, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you've heard of him, right? Like, who he is. And then you pull this pick out of your pocket and I'm flabbergasted. I'm like, damn it, now I have to make another best friend. Like, this is crazy. It was such a small universe. And not only that,
it gets weirder.
Yeah, it does get weirder because
it?
We find out that we have very close ties to the same geographical area. So I grew up in north central Indiana, moved around a little bit, but settled right before high school in Wakarusa, which is a very small Amish town up, South Bend, Elkhart area. And I went to high school in Napanee, and I meet you in Bloomington and find out you were living in Napanee. And I'm like, how is that possible? Then another Van Halen fan lives in this town and I don't know who he is. Like, that didn't make any sense. But the timing of your arrival and my departure, I think, were slightly askew.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to high school there. I came after my first year of college, which was at Miami of Ohio. So there was a gap for sure. But we knew a lot of the same people. My brother lives in Wakarusa with his family now.
Is that right? That's awesome.
So you know where the Browns lived? This will bore everyone, but he's in that cul-de-sac back across the street from the school.
Close to downtown. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah,
So
I know
it's
exactly
great.
where the Browns lived because I snuck out of my house when I was young, and which coincidentally happened to be the Browns' former house because we bought the house from them. And I rode my bike all the way to Tamara's house and TP'd her house and dumped shaving cream all over her trampoline.
Great! They've been looking for you since then.
Oh yeah, I heard that actually. I'm pretty sure she's a listener to the podcast, so now I've finally come clean and I feel good about it.
Yeah, certainly.
So it was a serendipitous meeting for us at that time. And then, I mean, I think this was actually after Greg, you graduated. So I'm not sure you were still there at that point, right? Because Jeff would obviously come to live with us at 406 North Lane, but you graduated in 98, right?
I graduated in 98. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was there.
I think we had 1 year of overlap.
Yeah, because I came mid-semester.
But not as roommates though, right?
No. I was in the dorms. I lived in the dorms with Jared.
Oh, geez.
With Vogel. I remember
Jared, the subway guy, Jared.
For those listening, I was going to actually let that go, but now that you brought it up, now all the dozens of your listeners are going to
remember whatever happened to that guy. Anyways, go ahead.
So I remember you were upstairs in the bedroom that I ended up being in at the end. That had its own bathroom in 406. Yep. So I remember you being up there. I remember. I mean, we were over there at the same time.
Yeah. So, sure. but there was
but not living together.
Yeah, because you ended up moving in with us when we were there with Patricia and Whitney and you and myself and Buford, I believe, was the lineup there at the end.
Yep.
So
and Magnolia. We had Magnolia.
Magnolia.
Oh my God.
And so you guys got to clean up then at the end.
That was, but we didn't.
We tried, but I mean, by the end of our third year as residents of North Lane, we had somehow, you've seen the letter, right? We got the letter from our former landlord about blood on the floor and footprints on the ceiling. And there was a pop machine that we left in the living room because we just couldn't get it out. And it was, we left it in probably the worst shape that we could have left it in, to the point where our landlord wrote us a note and told us how disappointed she was in us, which I genuinely do feel bad about. But man, 3 years of wear and tear in college, that's what you get, I feel like.
I remember parties where we had T-shirts that said house beer, and
still have mine.
The Pizza Express condom guy showed up, and
I remember that guy.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Give a shout out on the radio, even. Who knows?
Fun. I remember the days when we pulled our furniture out in the parking lot for Little Five and slept out there and just kind of it was, sanitary to say the very least.
Yeah. Well, I shared that picture with you guys, and I think it showed up on 406 North Lane social media. But we staged a picture in the parking lot. We did sleep. Somebody slept on that couch, but we staged a funny picture where we were all splayed out.
Yeah.
And it's Buford and myself, and I think it's dark. I think
I took that picture. I think that might have even been my idea, because I remember very specifically, because I think at least Buford was in his boxers and nothing else. And it was early in the morning and he just laid out there. So
was it Jason Dark who was, I'm pretty sure he was the third person, but it had to be on a disposable camera of some sort. I mean,
sure.
That's the technology we were dealing with. And now look at us. We're staring at each other in 3 different states.
It's crazy. That's awesome.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, it's a great callback. It's a great tie to 406, which is the spirit of this whole podcast, right? All the goofiness that happened back then and all the fun things that we did. So it's awesome to have you on this podcast, man. It really is cool to
I
catch
love
up.
it. I love it. And Greg, I think when Matt got on, he didn't expect me to have a boom mic. I thought he was
That's impressive.
Hey, Greg doesn't even have a boom mic. All he's got is a laptop
He doesn't-
mic right now. So
yeah, he doesn't have a dongle.
Nope. I'm
So in an
missing my
effort-
dongle. Yeah.
In an effort for you guys to understand that, I know you didn't believe me the first time I said I was a Sammy fan, but I proved it with a guitar pick. And here we are 25 years later, and I want to show you a few amazing things that are still, my collection is still growing.
I love it.
I've been getting into some 45s. You saw the video I just sent you both today. That is just a collection of vinyl, right? All the Sammy Hagar vinyl I could find, I'm buying. Like, these are 45s.
Oh,
Eagles
man.
Fly.
That's Eagles Fly. What's the B-side on that record? Is there one? I assume.
Give to Live?
No, because this is Give to Live. I got that one right here.
He's got that one.
Right.
We need track listings if you've got some special ones.
Eagles Fly.
Eagles probably Fly.
It's the same.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's the same. Yeah. Yeah. So I've got, I just want to roll through. I won't do all these B-sides, but this is Give to Live and Give to Live. So they were very, very creative back then. Looks like it didn't even put a B-side on. Here's another Give to Live with When the Hammer Falls on the other side.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Right? So a little bit different. I've done Everything for You on both sides.
Okay.
That's an oldie. Yeah.
Nice.
That exists.
That's amazing.
Isn't that great?
Is that like an original or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know this is a audio medium, so I'll explain it. This is a I Can't Drive 55, and the B-side, Dick in the Dirt. So good. I mean,
that's it. Talk about a deep cut, huh?
Deep cut.
That's
but the I Can't Drive 55 logo on the sleeve and on the back is just awesome, right? Isn't that fun?
Well, let's just be thankful that Dick in the Dirt wasn't the more popular song, because I don't know what that logo was going to look like.
Okay, so then I got Van Halen, Why Can't This Be Love, and Get Up. We got Sucker in a 3-piece with Finish What You Started. And then even cooler than those, Sammy Hagar, Winner Takes All, Over the Top soundtrack.
Oh my God.
Nice.
Is that a $3 price sticker on it?
I've got some really cool ones that I got along the way.
Do you have a specific store that you go to, or you're just kind of going all over?
There's 4 or 5 in Kansas City, believe it or not. So I have one that's closer to me. I have 2 that are relatively close, and then the others are just, if I'm in the area. But anyway, yeah. And you guys saw all of my Sammy Hagar, so I'm not going to bore you with those. But once we start talking about balance, I might have a little bit more show and tell.
Well, I don't know if there's a better segue than that. So, Van Halen is a big thing that I think unites us, not just as friends, but as music lovers. And, I've gone on this podcast a little bit about Chewie is the one that sort of introduced me into the world of Van Halen, and Balance was the album that was out at the time. And then, of course, when I meet Jeff and we get to be friends, this is after Balance, sure, but this was sort of a really good bonding thing for us, because this was the last album that Van Halen ended up doing with Sammy Hagar. So I'm ripping off to some extent the Bogus Otis podcast, which is this podcast that is dedicated. I think it's you call it the official podcast of the Red Rocker Sammy Hagar, and they did this very same thing that we're going to do tonight. So I'm completely ripping off the idea, but hopefully we can do it in our own way and it can be fun. But we are here tonight to talk about the album Balance and to rank our favorite songs from 1 to 12 on this album, which ended up being a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, because I'm going through this list and, the number 9 out of 12 song I really like, but I had to find a way to sort of archive it with everything else. And of course, I went back, I listened to a lot of the album. I talked to you, Jeff. I know that you did the same thing, but I'm kind of curious to know, like, what does this album mean to you guys as Van Halen fans, and sort of that period of time in the mid 90s when, things were tumultuous within that group, but it was a great time for their music.
Well, of course, it was the most recent that had been out. You mentioned that, but it never at any point in time was ever my favorite album of theirs, right? I always had something I was going to listen to over this. So I think a lot of these songs in my younger years were a little bit overlooked, but I remember seeing the actual album cover with this Siamese twin looking kid in there, right? And tying that back to this album cover, the kid smoking a cigarette with angel wings, right? So it like there's these kids being used, and there was a rumor I actually read online that was Wolfgang in that picture. People thought that was Wolfgang in the Balance cover, and of course it was not, and it was an artist depiction that, early photoshopping, right, at its finest. And I always thought the image was moderately disturbing, but these kids kind of shaped in a V, and they're balancing, right, and trying to balance, which, I mean, there's just so many cool things about that image that I thought was unique, and only a band like Van Halen that had already done edgy things like the 1984 album cover could get away with something like that. I don't think that's a good opener cover, but it's good to have an established core of fans that can appreciate it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And the artwork was super cool. And it was definitely, I mean, we're going to talk about it here, I think, but it was sonically and thematically, it's a very significant departure from a lot of what they've done before this, which made it a very polarizing thing for both fans and non-fans of the band. But what about you, Chewie? I'm really curious about your recollection of what Balance meant to you, because I remember coming in your dorm room before it was our dorm room and watching you watch this show that they were broadcasting on MTV. I believe it was the Pensacola show. I believe it was
Pensacola,
the
yep.
first show of the tour, the ambulance tour, as they dubbed it, for all kinds of funny reasons. But you were watching that, and I'm like, what is this? And I think you even had like not a poster, but like a page of a Rolling Stone article or something, like ripped out and put on your wall. Like, you were all in on this band that I didn't really know much about. So what did the Balance album, for someone like you who was a fan well before this era, what did that mean to you? Like, and how excited were you for it?
Yeah. So I remember very vividly. Yes, you're right. It was the Pensacola show. It was on MTV's like Spring Break, and it was a pretty rare event then to show a live concert on TV. Like, not, it wasn't pay-per-view. It wasn't, and I remember you guys so we were sitting in the dorms, and you guys were going out, and you're like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to watch this show. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so like Jeff, Balance has never been maybe my favorite Van Halen album, but at that time in my life, that was like the most important Van Halen album I had ever heard. And I remember being so excited about it, so excited for it. And I remember sitting there watching that show on that little 16-inch piece of shit TV that I had in my dorm room at the time.
I remember that.
And I was mesmerized. And in fact, I went back in preparation and I watched pieces of that show. You can see it on YouTube.
Nice.
And it literally like instantly brought me back to that time. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Yeah, like I said, like Jeff, probably was never my favorite Van Halen album, but I'll be honest with you, over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I've probably listened to this album maybe more beginning to end than I have any other album beginning to end Van Halen wise. Maybe with the exception of 5150, just because that's just such an easy listen for me. It's almost like a default.
Mhm.
It's funny, Pip, you mentioned you got to nine, right? There are 9 songs on this album that, like, on any given day could be in that, top 2 or 3, maybe 1 and 2. And again, we'll get into it. The last 3 or 4, I can kind of take or leave. Spoiler alert, the instrumentals, I don't particularly, not that I don't like them, but they're just different. They just kind of stand out. But no, I remember like it was yesterday. I remember watching that show. I remember going and buying this album on opening night at what was the name of that record store down in Kirkwood?
The Den.
The Den. I remember going to like a midnight opening for this to buy this album and just, listen to it probably 2 or 3 times on repeat and just tried to soak it in. And yeah, I've forever been a huge fan of this album. And I'm pumped that we're gonna get to talk about it tonight because there's a lot of really special songs for it for me.
So Chewie, did you go back and listen to this album in preparation for this discussion tonight?
I didn't listen to it beginning to end. I did listen to a lot of it though, yes.
Okay.
And a lot of it I know, I mean, like all three of us, I'm sure I know it very, very well. I went back and I listened to some of the stuff that I hadn't listened to in a while, some of the instrumental stuff, some of the other like, 7 through 9, right, that I don't listen to all the time. Like I said, my top 2 or 3 are pretty much locked in. But yeah, short answer is yes, I did.
Okay. Because I tried to do the same thing, and I know I talked with Jeff, and he said he was listening to it as he was traveling back and forth. And for me, it was a really, gosh, it was a really bittersweet experience, if I'm being honest, because I love this album. I really do. This was sort of my gateway drug into the world of Van Halen because, you were the one that introduced me. And I don't even think it was the first album of theirs that I got, but I'm pretty sure it was the second. I think I got it through BMG back in the day when we used to get like 7 albums for a penny and then
For
cancel
a
our
nickel.
service right away.
Yeah.
And I just remember listening to it constantly. But to me, it is both, there's so much that I really, really love about it. And then there's so much that is just, how do I say this? It's filled with so much heartbreak for me when I listen to this album because if you've been a fan of the band for a long time and especially the Sammy Hagar era, this is where things start to fall apart. And I feel like if you really listen for it sonically, lyrically, even from a songwriting perspective, like you pick up on a lot of those cues at this point. I don't think they liked each other very much when they were writing this album. And there are a lot of factors around that. There's the death of their old band manager Ed Leffler, like Sammy's original band man, or I don't know if it was his original, but his last, when he was a solo artist before he joined Van Halen, his manager Ed Leffler came with him, and Ed Leffler was the manager of Van Halen throughout the years, and then he died in I think 93 or 94. And I think that was the sort of the beginning of the end of where things started to fracture for that band. And then they picked up a new band manager by the name of Ray Daniels. Ray Daniels was Alex's brother-in-law, and it turns out he was just really cancerous to the culture of that band. And all of this stuff kind of came to a head. And I remember just really loving this album and thinking it was the greatest thing ever. And then 2 years later, they weren't a band anymore. So it was tough because if you take this album and you put it next to a 5150, which if I have a number one and a number two, it's those two, 5150 being first. I see Jeff's 5150 and Balance being second, but they are very different albums from a perspective of tone. Obviously, sonically, they're different because they were made 8 years apart, so technology was better. But Van Halen 5150 is a happy sounding album. This is not that, but it is still really good and has a lot of great stuff on it. I don't know if you guys, do you agree with that? Like, do you feel that way? Like, it kind of took me through the ringer a little bit listening to this stuff, really intensely.
I'll get into this a little bit further later. I don't want to do a spoiler here, but yes, I think it is totally that way. Why do you think I know the studio cut that we got did not have Baluchitherium on it, but it is on it now. But so there's technically 3 on it, like Chewie said, but like you mentioned, Pip, when we talked the other day, Baluchitherium was not on it. I have this Van Halen box set that came out this year with these albums on it, right? And the Rarities album over here has Baluchitherium on it.
Sure.
But when you look at it on Spotify, it's on Balance album.
Yeah.
Right. But why do you put every other album had like a solo on it, right?
Yeah.
5150 or it had 1. We have 3 on this one. Is that them not wanting to work together? Is it right? I mean, if you listen to Strung Out, it looks like It sounds like it
Yeah.
should be in the background of a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that was just how they felt. Maybe
It's
that's
funny
where
you
Eddie
should
was
say
at.
that, because I think if you listen to the album, you hear some stuff from Sammy that sort of sounds like his version of, yeah, this is falling apart. I always felt like Strung Out was Eddie's version of saying, yeah, this is
Yeah.
getting deconstructed. This thing is getting torn apart. That was him from like 10 or 15 years earlier destroying a piano. That's what it was. It was Marvin Hamlish's piano. Marvin Hamlish being a famous composer of movie music and movie scores and things like that. And he rented Marvin Hamlish's house and fucking destroyed his piano with like
Wow.
ping pong balls and like broke strings and all this kind of stuff. But the only reason to me that that exists is because that was, I don't know, I feel like that was just kind of where his head was at the time, and that
Yeah.
breaks my heart.
Well, I think we need to start getting into this a little bit, because the things I'm going to say are going to jump over this topic. I mean,
Okay.
I'll go with my number one, which I think is going to be a shocker. You want
Really?
to get into
Okay.
it?
Well,
Is
well,
it doing time? Is it the drum solo? Because if it is, it says a lot about what you
Not that
think about this
shocking.
album.
Not that shocking. Go ahead,
so are
Chewie.
you
I'm
gonna
sorry, Chewie.
okay? Are we gonna go 12-1 or are we gonna go 1-12?
We're gonna go 12-1 because we
Okay.
believe in
Oh.
drama, and we're gonna
Okay.
amp this up, right? So you're gonna
Okay.
start with your least favorite
Okay.
song, and we're
Okay.
gonna work our way up. So
Well, then I'm glad you stopped me, because I was absolutely going to start on the other end.
Okay.
But this makes sense. Okay.
So, all right.
Well-
So we're going to give Jeff the honors because Jeff is our very special
Yes.
guest on this podcast. So, Jeff, start with number 12. Actually, before you do that, you were talking a little bit earlier about the Van Halen box set and Ethereum and all that stuff. Here's something that I learned today that I thought was really funny. Ethereum did appear on the original release of Van Halen on the CD version, but not on the vinyl version because they couldn't fit it on there. There was only so much physical space that they had. When they re-released this box set, they released it in two formats. They released it on CD and they released it on vinyl. The CD version removed Ethereum from the Balance album, and just to put it on that special disc, which
On the
to me-
rarities.
yeah, it's like, well, let's not put it on the CD. Let's make it consistent, which is just the goofiest thing that I've ever heard of. But I've got a lot of feedback on this box set. Maybe we should have another conversation about that sometime, because I've got some things that I like and things that I very much don't like about it.
Well, I'm torn over whether I should tear into it or not. Right? It's still sealed. Right?
I
You can see
noticed
the
that. Why
glare.
the hell have you not listened to it yet?
Well, I'll tell you exactly why. I don't have a functioning record player right now.
Okay, all right.
I got no reason to open it, but
good reason.
But I also want to see the artwork, right? Like, I know the three of us love the artwork. It's amazing to think that we came from Diver Down artwork
Sure.
to Balance, right? Balance was, if you look at the progression of how risky they were getting, it just kept getting more and more. And there's a big transition.
Yeah.
So I held up the Diver Down album so we could reference it, like you guys didn't know what it looked like. So I actually, little known fact, you guys might not know this, I'm an advanced open water scuba diver, and one of the reasons I love scuba diving paraphernalia is it literally has this Diver Down, because that's a scuba dive flag.
Yeah.
Right. So it has like this dual meaning for me. When I get a scuba shirt, it's got the flag on it. To me, it's a Van Halen shirt, but
that's awesome.
a
That's
lot of
super
people
cool.
think that way. Yeah.
All right. What do you got for your number 12, Jeff?
Well, possibly I bet the three of us, if I was going to vote on any of them that we all have in common, it's this one, Doing Time. I don't fall in love with drum solos. I just don't do it. I love it when it's embedded into a song and it's part of a transition, or right. I love that. But if it's 2 minutes of just a variety of percussion instruments is actually what this is, right? It starts off where it's not really drums as much as it is like a Caribbean feel or whatever. It's different. I'm just not a drum solo guy. No disrespect to Alex. I'm just not a drum solo guy.
Sure. I get that. And I feel very similar. I feel like Doing Time is an appropriate name for this track because that's what it feels like I'm doing when I'm listening to it. It's not my number 12, but I'll spoil that it's very close. But I agree. I feel like if you're not Led Zeppelin, there's no way you should have a recorded drum solo on an album. Like you just, sorry, maybe Keith Moon, I would let that pass. But
Probably.
as great as Alex Van Halen is, and he truly is a great rock and roll drummer, having his own instrumental on that album seems like a tremendous waste of space. And I don't know if we're going to get to this, but I'll go ahead and drop it now. There is a B-side that got left off of this album called Crossing Over, which was the B-side of, I think, was it Can't Stop Loving You? One of the singles that they put out. It was available in the Japanese release of this album, but that song is a hell of a lot better than any of the instrumentals that ended up on this album. And it's really confusing as to why that's not included. Of course, that is on the supplemental disc that we were just talking about for the vinyl and CD releases. Yeah, I agree with you. That one's not great. And mine is just to try to make this as smooth of a segue as possible. Too late. Strung Out is mine. So Strung Out is the track where at least Doing Time has something melodic to it. There is nothing melodic to Strung Out. It's literally Eddie Van Halen destroying a piano. And allegedly, so this track I think lasts 90 seconds, maybe. Allegedly,
it's short.
There are 10 full tapes of him destroying a piano. And, Bruce Fairbairn, who was the producer of this album, supercut, the stuff that Eddie was doing into this 90-second track. And all I could think of was poor Valerie, right? Because Eddie and Valerie rent this house, and she's got to sit around for like fucking 10 hours and listen to him destroy a piano while they're on vacation. And he's recording it as if it's the greatest thing ever. Like Strung Out is a great name for it, because I'm sure Eddie was when he thought this was going to be a good idea. But yeah, that's my number 12.
Yeah, it's my number 12 as well for very similar reasons. This is going to sound weird. I didn't care for it when I didn't know the backstory behind it, and I care for it even less once I learned the backstory of it's literally Eddie destroying a piano. And I can understand that he's an artist and he's doing his artist thing, but yeah, it has no there's just nothing redeeming there for me. Again, I'm not a musician. I like music, but I'm not a musician, so yeah, there's just nothing there for me.
Well, I think this is an organic transition into my number 11.
Yeah.
Because my number 11 is Strung Out. And the reason
Okay.
it was 11 and not 12, like you guys had valid points, I think there's value to this song in the form of it literally could be used as background music somewhere valuable in what you guys love in horror films, right? This could be used in a film. It really could be. That's all I think of when I listen to it is, man, I hate to see what's going on around this noise, right? I think there's value to the song. It's better than a drum solo. That's why it's not my bottom pick.
I like that. I mean, I agree that it's kind of terrifying. Like you listen to it, and I have to think maybe it was intentional to have that sort of go into, because it's basically the precursor to Not Enough,
which is so opposite, right? The dichotomy of those two sounds.
Yeah, and maybe that's intentional in ways that I haven't picked up on yet, but I almost put it at my number 11 too, just because I respected the fact that was Eddie's way of saying, hey, things are falling apart. So, Eddie Van Halen very famously has been an alcoholic for most of his life, but he stopped drinking shortly before they started recording for Balance. And throughout most of the recording of this album, he was sober. And it was a really jarring experience for him, as I've read and as I'm sure it was. And so I almost put it there, but I because there's nothing to hum, there's nothing to bop your head to. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I put Doing Time on my number 11 because of reasons I've already said. Drum solos do not interest me. They are my pee break. They are my beer break at a live show. That's what happens when the drum solo happens. And as much as I respect Alex, and let me I guess interrupt myself by saying, like, his drum solo in during the Balance tour was actually, it was pretty good. It was like a version of this, but it was a little bit more augmented with some other sounds and some synth hits that he was doing. And that, that had some cool stuff to it. But this on an album is a complete waste of space. It really bums me out, and it's skippable. I can't think of the last time I listened to it from front to back. It just doesn't ever happen. I go right in and not enough every time.
Doing Time is my number 11 as well. The only reason I can tell you the last time I listened to it was because it was yesterday. It's the only, before that, it was probably several years ago.
On
There's
accident.
really only, yeah, right. Yeah, I couldn't get to the skip button. I couldn't reach it, right? Yeah, for me, I mean, there's, and again, to Jeff's point, not to take anything away from Alex as a drummer, he's an amazing drummer, but like, short of Neil Peart and maybe Phil Collins, and you know what I mean? Like, there's just not many drummers that I really care to listen to. So,
Well, and now Phil Collins' son, according to the last podcast,
he's I mean, he's amazing. I mean, really is. Yeah.
If he can cover Doing Time, then I'll give him a listen.
There you go.
Would you consider what I just said proof that I listened to the last podcast?
100%.
Yes.
You've done your homework for sure.
One down, 88 more
One
to
down,
go.
80.
Jeff.
I got to catch up. I don't have to listen to this one. I'm gonna call it 87 to go.
Okay,
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, what do you got for your number 10?
Well, depending on how you consumed this album, you might have had a top 11, but I'm going to call it Baluchatherium just because, again, it's a solo. It's not something that I like. I like guitar solos. I mean, that's why he is above all the other solos. But again, it doesn't catch me, doesn't make me want to keep listening to it. It's not my favorite Eddie Van Halen guitar solo. So
Yeah, it's
number 10.
Yeah, it's not Eruption, it's not 316, it's not melodic. I mean, it's a guitar solo, but it's not even an awesome one, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, and it's my number 10 as well. So we got our instrumentals out of the way, and now we're going to get to the meat of the album. But I actually do really like this solo. I think it's really good. And the guys I'll give them credit so I don't get accused of ripping them off. But the guys on that Bogus Otis podcast said this, and I thought it really hit home to me, is that Baluchatherium sounds like what Eddie would have done if Eddie ever got off his ass and actually did a solo album. And I would agree with that. Like this is very big. It's all encompassing. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. I really love in this song and in almost every other song I'm getting ready to talk about is that Michael Anthony's presence is very, very much there in ways that it hadn't been in the past. Obviously, there's no vocals on this, so I don't mean it from that perspective, but from his bass, right? I think this is just a heavy song. It's got a very good sort of droning kind of chug to it, and I really like it, but I can't in good conscience put it above any of the songs on this album because it just doesn't fit that for me. But I do think that this is good. It is something that I don't regularly skip. Like I will listen to it because I do think it's got some good melodies to it. It just isn't, I could have been good with this. I would have been good with just this one solo and then nothing else. It certainly, Chewie, to your point, it does not stack up with Eruption, Spanish Fly, Cathedral, all the other stuff. It almost feels like he just kind of felt like he had to put something on here, but it also feels like he put some time and effort into it because there's a lot of layered guitar parts. Everything is there. What I'm really curious about, I don't know this answer, is was this meant to be a song? Like, I think maybe that could have been the case. Like, is this something that Sammy just didn't feel like singing over or couldn't find a way to sing over? And so it became an instrumental because it's composed in a way that feels more like a song than something like Eruption or Spanish Fly, which is clearly just a, minute to minute and a half version of guitar wankery, as some of us call it, justified wankery, but wankery all the same. So yeah, that's long way of saying I agree. Number 10, Baluchatherium.
Well, now I have to listen to that and think where they could put words in that because you've really messed me up. I'm going to have to re-listen to it.
Well, it's funny if you listen to sort of like Eddie sort of plays this, how do you say it? Like he plays sort of the vocal riff over it as he's like, so there's the background and the rhythm and some of the lead, and then there's this the main track that he kind of plays that sounds like it could be, if you hum it, like what Sammy would have sang over it. I don't know if that's the case or not. I can only imagine that it starts like everything else in the Van Halen world, which is like I've got this riff and it just becomes something else. And maybe they just couldn't find an avenue for this to become a song, and that's how it became an instrumental. But what about you, Chewy? What is it safe to say that you have Beluga Theory? Are we 3 for 3 on number 10? That's pretty huge.
We are three. Yeah, we are 3 for 3. And you and I, Pip, this is the third overlap that you and I have had on this list so far. I have a feeling we're going to diverge from here.
I do.
But
I
yes,
agree.
I kind of spoiled it up front. I just didn't, again, and I would agree with everything that you just said, Pip. I think this is clearly the best of the three instrumentals here. This is head and shoulders above the last two that we talked about. I agree. So I listened to that same the Going Otis podcast, and those guys had some really good thoughts around this song too. I think you might be right. I think there might have been some stuff here where maybe Sammy was, either didn't want to or couldn't or what have you. That might have been because of the, where the band was at that point. Did they not want to work together? Who knows? Again, it's a solo. It's an instrumental. I didn't particularly, again, not that I didn't care for it, but when you stack up these 12 songs on this album, it is, I just can't put an instrumental above any of the songs on the album. And that would include Crossing Over as well. So,
okay. All right.
If we had 13, it would include that as well. So, all right. So here, Jeff, I think this is where we might kind of start to diverge.
It's where it gets good.
Hear some, which is good. That's kind of stuff. In fact, when Pip and I do these top fives and top tens, I think we actually really, I won't speak for him, but I enjoy when we disagree, because like that's kind of where we get to discuss and argue and that kind of stuff. So what do you got for your number 9?
Okay, before I get there,
Yes.
do you think there's any other song in the next 9 that could be without words and stand as a solo? I'm gonna think about it. I think maybe there's one, two.
I do.
Maybe
yes,
two.
There are two in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, as we're talking about, can we put words on the solo? How about can we take words off of a song and make it a solo?
That's
one
super
of
interesting.
them. One of them at least for sure. Yeah. Maybe two. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This will be interesting to find out what those are.
Yeah. Number 9 for me, Big Fat Money.
Okay.
I just never loved that song. It's kind of a funny name and funny lyrics, and I don't know, just never landed for me. It's probably one that I've skipped over more, other than the solos, than any of the others. So as I'm playing this over and over this week to kind of get back into it, that one, there's really that one and the next one could have flip-flopped, as like they just don't land with me. So Big Fat Money, number 9.
Okay. Well, that's definitely an interesting one. I will go ahead and semi-spoil that. That's a little bit higher on my list. I do like that song for reasons that I'll talk about later. But I think that song is interesting because to me, it really feels like their producer or their band manager or somebody said, hey, we need a song that sounds like Led Zeppelin. Can you pull that out? And they came up with this one, because if you think about Big Fat Money and you put it next to Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, they have a lot of similarities. You can even sing the rock and roll lyrics next to it. Even the part where the piano is like in the background, like there are a lot of parallels, in my opinion, to that. And that's one of the reasons that I really like the song personally. But I understand that. I think one of the interesting things that I had to come to terms with when I was making this list is that some of the songs that I really, really like on this album, I hate the lyrics. Like, I don't think they're very
okay.
good. I don't. I love Sammy. I love him with all my heart. He's one of the best singers I've ever heard in my life, but he writes some shitty lyrics sometimes. He does. It's true.
I mean, I've got the lyrics pulled up to these songs on my screen.
Yeah.
And they're just, some of it, you're right. I'm in the same boat.
but I like this one. I don't have a problem with the
Look,
lyrics,
okay,
but it's a little weird.
too much temptation, enough to kill a generation, space station, starvation, premature ejaculation. I mean, this ain't grooving, this ain't funky. It's on my back, but it ain't my monkey. I mean,
Yeah, right. I don't know what
yeah,
he was
I'm there.
really working through when he wrote those lyrics. And there's some much dumber lyrics that we're gonna get to probably, but this is one of those where I'm like, man, if you would have just put a little bit more thought into it, like the music part of it is really good, and I'll talk about that more later. My number nine, that's where we are, number nine. I think I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, and I'm just gonna take it because that's where it is. But my number nine is actually not enough. I do like this song. It's not a I'm not condemning anything here, but this to me, so I guess just to go back in time, Chewie knows more than anybody that I love nothing more than a great Van Halen power ballad, a great love song, right? Why can't this be love? Love walks in. When it's love, okay, all these songs that have the word love in them, those are all really great songs. Maybe why can't this be love isn't maybe as much of a pick me up, but like when you hear Love Walks In, and especially when it's love, which is my favorite Van Halen ballad of all time, it really sort of it just like it kind of fills you up a little bit. Like you get kind of excited, you get moved by it, at least I do. And I love those songs and I think they're great. Not Enough is a good song. It's a really good song, but it's in a very darker direction. And it again is very emblematic of what this band is going through at this time. It's all about being not enough. It's very dapper. It's very sour. It kind of hurts to listen to it, but it's still a really great track. But it's not what I want in a Van Halen power ballad. And to be fair, it does fit the tone of this album. So I can't discount them for that because this whole album coming out in the mid 90s and on the heels of grunge or I guess at the height of grunge and them trying to kind of pick up some of the heaviness of what's going on at that time. This makes sense, but it just didn't connect with me as much. What say you,
Well,
Chewie? I know.
well, hold
Sorry,
on,
go ahead.
I've got you talked about love in the songs, right?
Yeah.
And there's a few times in albums where I think the order of the songs is funny to me. Like the best one in the world is like there's a Chicago Greatest Hits album I have where it says, "Does any does anybody really know what time it is?" And the next song is 25 or 6 to 4. It's like, okay, like you're in, there you go. Right.
There you go.
In this album, song 2 is Can't Stop Loving You, and song 3 is Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do.
Yeah.
Like they just to me it like cancels each other out a little bit.
Yeah.
It just it makes me laugh. So anyway, I don't mean to cut you off, Chewy, but when you talk about all the love songs they have with the word love in them,
Yeah.
like, they make me laugh sometimes. Yeah.
I'll just say Not Enough is way higher on my list, and there are reasons for it.
I knew it would be.
Right, and there are reasons for it, and I'll get to those reasons when I talk about it on my list. But I can understand why that song is not as high on your list as it is on mine, and it has to do with kind of where I was in my life, where I was in my relationships, and where I was in my frame of mind around love and like those kind of things. So again, it'll be interesting when we get there. My number nine, I'm with Jeff. I'm Big Fat Money, and again, it's not that it's a bad song. In fact, I don't think there's really any disclaimer. I don't think there's any bad songs on this album. Maybe the instrumentals. Big Fat Money to me, and you guys will totally understand this reference. This is like Source of Infection and Sucker in a Three-Piece on OU812, right? Not bad songs, but just like they kind of they're just kind of hanging out there. I think you're right, Pip. When you're talking about the Zeppelin, there's a lot of Zeppelin into this song. But yeah, it's a song. It doesn't really fit in the overall. I think the one thing that I would like to point out about this album, and I think that the Otis guys pointed it out, and Pip, you did too. This is a really, especially when you layer it against 5150, right? The first album and the last album, that was the guys. 5150 was the guys having fun together, this is clearly not that, right?
Yeah.
This is guys that are much older, that are clearly going through some shit, are clearly not on the same page all the time. It's a much darker album, to your point, Pip, and to the Otis guys. 5150 is all very upbeat, and why can't this be love? And love walks in, it's the beginning of love, right? And this is, don't tell me what love can do. Like, it's not enough. It's like they're still about love and they're still ballads, but it's very down, it's very negative. And yeah, and this particular song, Big Fat Money, to me just doesn't fit with the rest of the album. It's a good song, but it just doesn't fit. So.
That's fair. Yeah.
All right, Jeff, number 8.
Well, who I've got written down at number 8, I was back and forth with 7 and 8. This might not be a popular selection, especially when I heard Pip's number 9, but because I've got that a lot higher too, but I got Aftershock. The more I've listened to it, though, it could flip-flop either way, tie with number 7. I had a hard time ordering these two, but it's growing on me. Yeah, I'm 47 now. This song's just suddenly growing on me. But I like the harmonics at the beginning of this song. There's a lot of, I think they were good at doing that. And then it kind of really dives into the jam. I've actually, one thing that you guys can't see, I've got hearing aids that I got yesterday, and they're Bluetooth. So you can't see them. But they're Bluetooth, and I actually can play these songs in my ears underneath these headphones and hear you and listen to the music. So,
oh wow,
yeah, how about that for being old and having hearing aids?
That's pretty fucking. That's actually pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, but that's cool hearing aids. Like, yeah.
Trust me, they're nice. So, I've got Aftershock. I don't know. I'm anxious to hear what you guys think of that and where that lands on your list.
Yeah, so I will say that's not my number 8, but it's not far off. Aftershock is one of those songs where I think when I heard it the first time, when I was giving Balance like the first, real playthrough, that was not one that impressed me a whole lot. But I do think that one has grown on me a little bit. I think that Sammy's voice is really strong on that track, which I like. I mean, I think honestly, and we can talk about this, I think Sammy's vocals sound amazing front to back on this album. I mean, obviously on albums, everybody's vocals sound good because you have the opportunity to produce, but this was before, auto-tune was a thing. And I think that it really required somebody to still be there and be present. And I think Sammy's vocals on this one, maybe not my favorite vocal performance on the album, but it is really, really strong. But I would also agree that it's one that is probably appropriate placed in the at the beginning of the last third of the album or something, from a track listing perspective, where I just kind of need a break from whatever else is going on until it gets to the next song. Like, I don't listen to it a whole lot. What I do think is interesting about the song is that, and Jeff, I sent you this on Instagram, I think today, like there's this really great Instagram account called VH Reels, where you can, they just a lot of performances, a lot of live performances, some good quality, some not so good quality, where you can watch, Eddie playing guitar. And Eddie actually at a few points during the Foreign Lawful Carnal Knowledge tour, when he was playing his solo, did the introduction to Aftershock. So he had that written well before Balance, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, I see your point there. It doesn't surprise me. That's not a huge one for me either. But my number 8 is actually, I know it's going to be super controversial and I'm going to get some shit for this, but you can't kick me off because it's my Zoom account. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. My number 8 is Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. That one is, I think it's a great song. Again, just because it's 8 out of 12 on my list doesn't mean I don't like it. I certainly respect it and appreciate it. Another really great vocal performance by Sammy. But this one to me is just, it's not that it's too heavy, it's just too dark. It really is. It is the darkest song on the album for me. And, back to the conversation about how Sammy used to sing about love and now it's Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. That shit is so prevalent. It is so heavy. And I know it's a response to Kurt Cobain, like, he's referenced very heavily in that song. And this is kind of a, Van Halen's version of grunge and all that stuff. But it's one that I really do like and I really do respect, but I can't, I skip it. I almost skip it every time because when you think about the track listing and the order and the Seventh Seal and they Can't Stop Loving You, which is way more poppy. And I think they go into, and then it's Don't Tell Me, but then it gets into like Amsterdam and these other songs. Like it just, it thematic, it like, from a pacing perspective, it really kind of hits you in the gut and then tries to pick you back up after that. And I don't know, for some reason, it's just one that I don't listen to. I don't revisit as much, but I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm sure that's way higher on your guys' list, but what do you think?
It's higher, but it's not way higher for me.
Okay.
So no, you're not going to get a bunch of shit from me at all for that pick. And yeah, and I think you're spot on. I mean, again, it's not a bad song. And here's the other thing that I'm even realizing as we talk through this. If we were to have sat down 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, and done this podcast, my answers would be very different. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
and I think part of it is, I grow as a listener. I think the more you know about Van Halen, the more this album changes, right? This album is really framed, in my opinion, by, if you don't understand the turmoil that the band is going through while they're recording this album, and if you don't understand that 2 years after this, the band as we know it doesn't exist anymore, this album takes on an entirely different meaning. So yeah, I don't know that the first even couple years that I've listened to this album, when it first came out, I didn't even pick up on the fact that there was turmoil. I didn't pick up on the fact that it was very negative. It was very dark in comparison to OU812 or 51. Like I didn't even pick up those themes. So no, I don't disagree really with anything you said there, Pip. My number 8 is, I'm with Jeff. I'm Aftershock. And so again, I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff that we said already. Again, not a bad song, but there's just other songs on here that I just enjoy much more. Again, not taking anything away from this, but it's not in that upper echelon of songs on this album for me.
Yeah. I think our groupings are very similar. Like
Yeah.
we don't have everything in the same place, but we have them grouped together, very closely. And I think once we get to the top, we're going to see the same thing.
Yeah, I think there are tiers in this album, very
Yeah.
very distinct different tiers, and within those tiers, I think you can kind of flip flop the songs, but at least in my mind, yeah. So I don't know, it'll be interesting. Jeff, what do you got for your number 7?
Okay, so this, do you ever listen to a song on the radio from a band you love and then you like it less because everybody else is listening to it now?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
1,000%.
so now you probably know it, Can't Stop Loving You. It just lost some glory when it became the popular song, I think, on the album. It just, I heard it too much, I think. It's a great song. It's fun. It's kind of one of their anthems, right? It's When It's Love and it's all those. I just think it's overplayed for me.
No, I totally get that. I think that was a result of somebody, I don't remember if it was the record company or the band manager, who said, "Hey, Eddie, we need a pop song." And at that time, or we need a radio hit. We need something that's going to hit high on the charts. And Eddie, being sober at the time, I think was able to more clearly and more quickly, more importantly, write songs. And I think he ripped this one out in a matter of an hour or so. And I understand why this is a bit of a polarizing song for a lot of people. It feels out of place on this album a little bit because it's not the dark one. It's the a little bit of a brighter tone, even though it has that sort of subtle darkness to it. But yeah, a lot of people didn't like this song, so it is definitely higher on my list. But I understand why it's there. It makes sense.
you made a really good point there, Jeff, where you're talking about not liking songs or liking them less as you hear them more, as you hear them on the radio and those kind of things. I've always considered myself kind of lucky because I don't listen to the radio very much. I never really have. And so a lot of those songs that would get overplayed for people, I never really dealt with that, right? Or I never like I would hear people like turn on a song because they heard it over and over and over again. And I never really experienced that only because I just don't listen to the radio all that often. Now, the problem that I run into because of that is I've been listening to the same 75 songs for the last 30 years. I mean, I still listen to these albums and Pink Floyd and Jacko Pierce and Led Zeppelin. Like I don't listen to anything new. But to your point, like I don't get sick of stuff that's on the radio because I don't listen to the radio. So anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Can we just take a quick second to appreciate the fact that you just said Pink Floyd, Jacko Pierce, and Led Zeppelin in the same
Yes.
sentence? Because
That is
I
awesome.
think that is fucking classic right there. I'll tell you, if Carrie Pierce is a listener to this podcast, he's walking away subscribing. All right. He's really happy.
I
about
hope
that.
so. I hope so.
Look, we've messaged on Messenger a little bit about some stuff, so maybe I'll chime him in. I'll get him on here. He's the
That
next
would be
guest.
amazing.
Guest number
That'd be
2.
amazing. I would love to have those guys. I love those guys.
That is hilarious. So what is your number 7?
Mine was "Don't Tell Me What Love Could Do."
Okay.
And again for very very similar reasons that you talked about. Again, not a bad song by any stretch, but there are just again as I get into my top 4 or 5, I think you'll see a theme in there, kind of where I was in my life and why those songs kind of rose to the top of that particular list. So yeah, not a bad song, but just I mean there had to be a 7, and that's where it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's a great song. Sonically, it's fantastically produced. It's just it's a heavy song for a group like Van Halen, who has been known as the party band up until this point, right?
All right, Jeff, what do you got for your number 6?
I've got Seventh Seal for number 6.
Okay.
There's a few that are in here that you've already said, even that just meant a lot to me at the time. I needed that kind of level. I needed that type of song to share Van Halen with people. And so they're higher on the list than you guys had them. But I got Seventh Seal.
Okay. I mean, I think that's solid. It's going to be higher on my list, but I kind of understand. It's a great intro track. That's what I'll say to that. Like the way that they put that on there, and with the monks and the chanting and the the 18 seconds before that bass drum kicks in and everything just goes crazy. Like, yeah, I do very much love that track.
It is. I do like the drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When after the monk chime, I do like that. I don't know. Again, I think you talk about how good Sammy's vocals are in this.
Yeah.
And I never claim he's a great vocalist. I just really like his vocals. I don't know if I would compare him to some people. I think he does a great job. I really like the sound of it.
Yeah.
Lyrically, I think some of these songs are a little interesting. This is one of them for me that's a little interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. Sammy, obviously, the big, when you're talking about Van Halen and you're talking about lead singers, right? It's Dave, it's Dave or Sam, right? And Sam to me has always been very close to my heart. I'm a big lyrics guy. Sammy is far and away a better lyricist than Dave. I think Dave is probably a better frontman overall. I don't know that he's a better singer, but he's a better like entertainer than Sammy is. But I think you're right, Jeff. I think there's a couple songs on this album that I think Sammy is just kind of mailing it in, and we've already talked about from a lyrics perspective. Not necessarily, I don't think he sounds bad on this album by any stretch. But I think lyrically he's just kind of mailing it in a couple songs. But yeah, I can totally see. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure Seventh Seal, that Pensacola show, I'm pretty sure they opened with Seventh Seal on that show, if I remember correctly. And
I think they did.
Yeah.
And this is interestingly enough, and this is something I hope we can talk more about as we're going through this list, but like the ballad songs, present a very sort of weird dynamic in the live show because they're so dark and because they're contrasted with songs from 5150 and OU 812 and For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and it's standing on top of the world, and then all of a sudden we're like, don't tell me what love can do. It kind of
Right.
it was a little bit jarring to hear that, but I would say, as much as I do like Seven Seal, and I will talk more about that later, that's the one off of this album that I felt like didn't translate as well live in concert. Only because I think the vocals on the track are really, really good, but have to be really kind of locked in order to make, the listener really feel that. And every single time I feel like I heard a live version of this song, I'm like, he tried to get there, but couldn't really replicate what he had on the album. Not that he should be held to that standard, but unlike Jeff, I actually think Sammy's one of the best vocalists I've ever heard. I really think he is. I don't think he's a good lyricist, generally speaking, but like vocally, I think he does stand up with the likes of, Robert Plant and some of his, contemporaries, if you will. Um, I really do think he's got that kind of power in his voice and that kind of soul. He has a lot of different registers and styles that he can sing in.
That's fair.
He limits himself, I think, to some degree because he, he kind of found his bread and butter. It's rock and roll, right? But I think he can be a little bit more than that if he pushes himself to do that. But yeah, I kind of lost track of where we were. I started rambling.
Yeah, no,
But
so now it's your number 6, Pip. What do you got?
So my number 6 is actually the song. This is a song that I didn't really. It didn't really hit me. It didn't really resonate with me for a long time, and then actually more recently, I've really come to appreciate it more. And I know this will be higher on your list, Chewy, but it's "Feelin'." It's the last song on the album. I really have grown in appreciation for this song because this song does have a little bit of everything, in my opinion, that makes Van Halen a great band. It's got Sammy. I do think Sammy vocally is always strong on every song on this album. I think his lyrics are actually really good on this song. This is one of those that I could stand behind, and I think is I used the word emblematic earlier, but I'll bring it back to say that this is emblematic of what's going on in this band at the time and how things are becoming very different and starting to split and break apart in this band. But also, aside from Sammy, I think Eddie's stuff is fantastic. Like the guitar part in here is really, really good. The solo is good. The way that they sort of lock in together towards the end is fantastic. The bass, Michael and Alex, everything about this song is really good. It's long. It's like 6.5 minutes long, which is especially long for a Van Halen song. But this song, Feelin', I think is a really great song. I want to put it higher on my list, but the ones that are above this are really sort of emotional favorites for me for various reasons that I'll get to. But yeah, that's my number 6. It's Feelin'.
I can't disagree with anything you just said. You're right. It is much higher on my list. And again, I think we're getting into the areas of this album where kind of what you as a listener bring to the album is starting to really kind of flavor where these are on this list. So no, yeah, I love that song and I'll talk about it when I get there. This, Jeff, is one of the songs that I thought about. Feelin' is one of the songs that you could take the lyrics out of it and it could be an instrumental, in my opinion. It is
Okay.
there's enough kind of difference in the melodies there where if you had to, I think this is one of the songs you could take the lyrics out.
I've got that higher on mine, obviously, too, because I
Yeah.
didn't say it yet, right? But
Right, yeah.
I'll talk about it when I get there.
Yep. All right. What
For sure.
what do you got for your number 5?
So I've got Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do for number 5. I
Okay.
do love the intro. I love that hard. I
Yeah.
love that. I think it does kind of tell us where Van Halen is at this current time. It's a jam. I do like the start. I do like the intro. It's one of those classic, like it just gets you started, right? I love that. But it takes a dark turn. I like the happy songs, the ones that make me feel better, for the most part. you'll find that to be. I'll contradict that here at the end, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right. No, yeah. And again, it's like, I think we're to, like I said, I think we're to the point where every song in this top 5 or 6, I think you can make an argument for, you can make an argument against. It really is just kind of what you're bringing to it, kind of outside of the song itself. It's like what you as the listener are bringing into it, and what you're caring about, and what you're really kind of connecting to at that
Yeah.
point. So, Pip, what do you got for your number 5?
So my number 5, I feel like you might be a little disappointed in me in this one, Chewy, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. My number 5 is "Take Me Back," Deja Vu. I mean, I absolutely adore this song. This is another one that feels a little bit out of place on this album, just because it's a little bit wispy, it's a little bit cheery. Like there's a bit of hopefulness in this song that I feel like doesn't exist in most of the other tracks. But I love this song for so many reasons. It's one of the few that I can strum along with a little bit on guitar, which I really love. And I think that it, sort of the breakdown in the middle, I guess you could call it the bridge, is really good. And I don't know, it's really hopeful. It sounds fun, and it's weirdly placed here, but I don't know. I've always loved this song. I love the chorus. It's fantastic. It's you can kind of headbang along with it. And I only wished, and I know, Chewy, you may be the only one. Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but you may be the only one that actually saw Van Halen live during this tour. Um, uh, and I know that they played this song. I know that they played many songs off of Balance. The Van Halen always did that every time they put out a new album. They predominantly played the songs off of their newer album, which I really respect. And I can't imagine what it would have been like to hear this song live, other than the fact that I have a few bootlegs with this song on it. But yeah, "Take Me Back," Deja Vu is my number 5.
Yeah, you're right. It pains me to see it that quote unquote low on your list,
I
but
know.
that's fine. I get it.
I know.
Yeah,
Ask me tomorrow, and to be honest, it'll probably be number 2.
Yeah,
Like
it'll change. Yeah,
these lists
100%.
are never solidified
100%.
for me.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say right now about this song before I get to it later is, to me, I love the fact that you've got the acoustic up front, you've got the wind chimes, and to your point, you can headbang late this song as well. I really like that kind of dichotomy within the song, as well as Jeff pours some Cabo Wabo. I love it. I love it. Outstanding.
That's awesome.
Let's see. So my number 5, I don't think we've talked about it. It's Amsterdam.
Okay.
Is
All
number
right.
5. And I have a feeling, well, I know it's the first time we've talked about it. I know we talked about Seventh Seal being an opener. I saw Van Halen, and I don't remember if it was on the Balance tour or the next year, but they opened with Amsterdam, which I always thought was a really weird opener. And the only reason I even remember it was the opener was I was at that concert with 2 of my buddies. Matt was one of them, who I think you met, Pip, along the way, or at least at the very least you heard me talk about Halen.
Sure.
And another guy named Dave Brooks, and they were going to wait until Van Halen played Amsterdam to smoke their pot. And I remember it very vividly because it was the opener of the show, and they literally looked at each other and like, well, shit, we have to go now. And that's the only reason I remember it was the opener. And I don't know, I always, especially off this album, right? I thought Seventh Seal to me is the kind of natural opener of the show.
Sure.
And it always kind of surprised me when they opened with Amsterdam. But a great song. Again, like I said ad nauseum, we're to the point in this album where, to your point, Pip, if you ask me tomorrow, this might be number 2 or 3. Right now, when I did my list, it's number 5. So,
You know how I know you don't smoke pot is because you said this is when they smoke their pot.
their pot, right? Right.
They
Their
smoke
pot.
the pot.
That amused me to no end right there. That was
Right.
good.
So,
All right. I mean, it's
All
a
right.
good. I get where that falls in your list,
Yeah.
and that is it's interesting. That is the first time that has come up on this list, which says a lot about that song because
Yeah.
lyrically, may be the dumbest song that we're going to talk about tonight.
It's moronic. It
But
really
there's a
is.
Or the
lot of
most
good.
clever, or the most clever. I don't know. It for the
Well,
time, like I remember hearing it and not knowing what most of those terms meant. Like, I
oh,
mean,
sure.
yeah.
But I mean, even
But you learn, you assume, and but now,
yeah.
2024, we're like, oh yeah.
But
This is
even Eddie Van Halen was doing interviews saying, "I hate those lyrics," and this is when the
yeah,
album was coming out. So like the press, even the press work that was coming out was really indicative of where that band was and how much they
yeah.
liked each other and all the sad stuff there. But anyways, I digress. Jeff, I think it's your
Okay,
turn. Tell us your number
number
five
four.
or number four. Sorry,
Number
recycle.
four.
Number
Yeah.
four.
Number four. Number four. Not enough. So we're in the top 4 out of 12, right? I mean, these are all songs we really like at this
Sure.
point. And again, tomorrow could all be different, but I love the piano intro. It just to me is one of these songs that I use to make other people that might not be hard rock people or metal people or rock people to like Van Halen because it's a piano medley, right? And the lyrics are great. I think it sounds great. I love the sound of his voice in this song. Um, yeah, I this and number 3 could flip flop for me, but I love it. Yeah, not enough.
I can't argue with that. I mean, it is a really good song. It is actually I can't play anything on piano, but I can play the intro to this song on the piano because I took a piano course for a semester at IU, and I basically sat down and made myself learn this song and not the song, but the intro to the song. I will say I do think arguably could be the coolest video that they came out with from the album. Like I think it was shot on some kind of rooftop somewhere, and Eddie's sitting there all cool and badass playing guitar when his hair was short and he had his sunglasses and that beard and all this stuff. It is a good song. I do like a lot of the guitar work and how it sounds. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's fantastic. So my segue into my number four, a little bit higher than it probably was. Well, guaranteed it was for everybody else is Big Fat Money. This is where mine came in because I do really like this song. This is one of those songs that does fire me up when I hear this because it's just got such great energy. I said that it sounded like a Led Zeppelin song, and I feel like I should amend that statement. It doesn't sound like a Led Zeppelin song, but it does sound specifically like the Led Zeppelin song Rock and Roll, because there are a lot of parallels, I think, from a chord progression standpoint when you listen to them. If you listen to them side by side, the lyrics are goofy as hell, and the lyrics probably aren't going to get any better as you go up my list. But I really think that this is the best guitar solo on the entire album. It is completely weird and jazzy, and it doesn't make any sense with the song, but for some reason it just works. And I love it every time we get to the guitar solo. And we haven't really talked about guitar solos on this album. We talked about like the Theorem and that, but I mean, like in terms of the solos that are within the songs, that really hasn't come up, and that's obviously what Eddie is known for. But Big Fat Money is my favorite guitar solo on this album because it just sounds so out of place, but also really, really fucking clever.
I think there's a better guitar solo, and we'll get to
Okay.
that later.
All right.
And
All
it
right.
was kind of mentioned a little. You mentioned it a little bit earlier,
Okay.
but I'll get to it.
I'm looking forward to it. It's my favorite solo, but it may not be the best. I mean, that's very subjective. But yeah, Big Fat Money is my number four. It always kind of fires me up, and I fist pump to it and sing and sing about monkeys on my back and all the goofy shit, all the lyrics and
We talked about those, didn't we?
yeah, we got there. So all right, pass it on to Chewy. You're number four, sir.
Yeah, I'm at the opener. I'm at Seventh Seal, right? I mean, this, again, we've talked about it. This one to me, I look at openers of albums, right? And it kind of sets the tone for the album. And this one is a little bit strange in that Seventh Seal to me is not, and again, we've already talked about it, this is a very negative, very dark album. Seventh Seal, though, to me is not that, right? It's not a poppy song by any stretch, but it's also not a dark song, in my opinion. Unless you want to talk about the kind of biblical nature of Seventh Seal. Obviously that's kind of a downer, but I've never really listened to this song as a dark song. I think it's of every song on this album, I think it's the perfect opener. I can't think of another one that I would prefer they open this album with. Again, we've talked about it a couple times on this podcast already. Seventh Seal, number 4 on my list. I love it.
Good stuff. All right. So number 3 to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, I know it was, you've already said it, but Take Me Back, Deja Vu is number 3 for me. And I'll tell you why. I guess that's why we're here, right? Obviously, I'm going to tell you why. We've been telling you why.
If you don't tell me why, it's going to be
I don't
the lamest podcast ever.
Number 3, Take Me Back, Deja Vu. And you, Pip, what do you think? So I could play some of this song. You could play a lot of this song. And I watched you and learned from you how to play this song on the guitar. And it just held a special spot for me. I loved it. I loved hearing it. I think about that every time I hear the intro and that guitar picking up. This is a very special song to me for that reason specifically. So number 3, Take Me Back.
I love that. That's awesome. And that's it's very kind of you to say. It is definitely one of the ones that, well, I mean, I think it's the only track, I got to look now, but I think it's the only track where an acoustic guitar appears on this album. And it is a really sweet intro. And it really graduates into something, it's very power ballady. It's probably the closest thing that they may get to on this album. Well, no, it's not true. Can't Stop Loving You is there too. But I think this is different than that. And it just kind of feels a little bit lighter, in my opinion. And yeah, I agree. I love that song. I think if you ask me tomorrow, I could swap that with Big Fat Money on my list anytime, and it could bounce around a lot. But it's the one Van Halen song that if I have an acoustic guitar in my hand, I'm playing that riff every single time that I pick it up, because it just I don't know, it breathes through me in some kind of weird way that I feel like I always have to try to put it out there. So I love that. My number 3 is Can't Stop Loving You. I'll be the first one to admit it is the maybe, I don't know if vapid is the right word, but it's definitely the most poppy sort of cliche kind of song that they have on this album. And it definitely doesn't fit thematically with a lot of what's going on here. But I love a good pop song. I really do. I love something that makes me feel good. And, from a composition standpoint, it's very simple. It's not very difficult to play. It's super easy, but I love how the guitar work is done in this track, and Sammy's vocals are really good as well. And I don't know, I can't really explain why I love this, but it does kind of fill me with, or maybe I can't explain it. I think it's the closest thing that comes to a power ballad in Van Halen world for me. It's the closest thing to When It's Love or Love Walks In, or some of those songs that sort of calls back to that. And even though it feels out of place with some of the other tracks, I appreciate it being there, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I chatted about Can't Stop Loving You. Again, it's like, I do. It's funny. As we're going through this album, I guarantee you, I will sit down tomorrow and I will listen to this album beginning to end, and I won't skip and I won't pause anything, because your perspectives on these songs are, which is part of the reason I love doing this podcast. It's like, it is, I'm going to listen to this album tomorrow and have a different perspective on it than I did the last time I listened to it. And that just like pumps me up. Anyways, yeah. So my, I'm rambling at this point. My, where are we at? We're on my number 3.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Feelin', and I changed it during this podcast, which tells you like my my two and three, my number one is my number one. My two and three obviously are, but I literally changed it within the last 10 minutes here. I swapped it out for my number two. I love this song. It's to me, it's probably I think if you had to pick one song that tells the story of the Balance album and where the band is, I think it's this song. I think if you listen to the lyrics, I think if you listen to kind of how they're working with one another and playing against one another, I think this song, like, even though there's some melodies there, they're not quite where they were in OEU 812 or the Fuck album or 5150, right? They're still, it's a little bit, it's strained, if that makes any sense. Like it's Sammy is really straining to hit those notes, and it's still an amazing song. But I think in retrospect, and obviously I'm reading way into this shit that I'm sure wasn't ever there, but I think this is the song that tells the story of Van Halen in 1995 as a band. So
Yeah, I mean,
number
I
three,
don't think you're reading too far into anything. I
and
think this is, again, 6.5 minutes long. It really takes you on a significant journey from the beginning of it to the end. And it starts very slow and very quiet, and I won't say acoustically, but almost acoustically. It's just like the first couple bars are just Sammy singing over Eddie playing guitar, and then it graduates into this big opus, if you will. And yeah, I mean, it's a really, really huge song, and one that I think you can appreciate more if you're a fan of Van Halen and appreciative of what they're going through at the time. To your point, I think that's
yeah.
really well said.
All right, so here's where kind of the rubber meets the road, Jeff, right? It's what you got number one and number two. You got two left. What's number two?
What's your rubber?
All right. My rubber, and then the next one will be my road, right? So rubber for me is Amsterdam.
Okay.
I love the intro. I love the fact that, and this would not have been the case when the album came out, maybe, but I just think the forwardness of what they were talking about and addressing, and there's some very like specific things in that song that I feel like if you know, you know. And when he talks right before he talks about, hold on, I'm gonna get to right before he talks about Panama Red. He talks about the place that he's going to get it. And here I screenshotted it earlier. And to me, it's like if you've ever been there, you know what this is. Quick stop at the Bulldog. So I don't know what the Bulldog is, but that's a place in Amsterdam. Quick stop at the Bulldog. Score me some Panama Red. And then I think it's funny that he says wham bam Amsterdam. Like you got to rhyme Amsterdam with something. He went with wham bam, right? I mean, that's kind of fun. That's very Sammy to me. Like that's Sammy lyrics. That's wham bam Amsterdam. Stone me
That's
like
what
no one else can.
that's what Ed had a real problem with, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That was the
it
lyric that
it
he
was the
hated.
wham.
Yeah,
It was the wham
yeah.
bam part. He hated that,
I get it.
yeah, I do too. I definitely get it. I also think it's not the dumbest lyrics that Sammy has ever written or sang. So I'm happy to say that this is also my number two. So you and I have this in common. This is Amsterdam.
All
I
right.
fucking love this song. I talked about, I think, Big Fat Money being a big sort of like pump up, fire up song for me. Amsterdam is way more than that. It is so good from top to bottom. Lyrically, yeah, I think you can toss it away. There's not a lot of really Bob Dylan level discussion going on here. But when you talk about the guitar parts and what's going on here, I mean, this is a close second for me for guitar solos in terms of what Eddie's doing in this song. It is fantastic. And I think it was only recently it kind of came to light. Like he wrote this song, or Eddie wrote a lot of these licks back in like 1986 or 1987. There's some video on YouTube of him during, I think, the OU 812 era where he's just sitting in a studio and he's playing Amsterdam, like almost, 7 or 8 years before it even comes out. But I think this is fantastic. I just can't I'll take this opportunity to talk about one of the things that I love the most about this album is the way it was produced. I think sonically, this is the best sounding Van Halen album I've ever heard in my life because it's a great combination of the guitar, the vocals, the bass. The bass sounds so good. It just thunders in your heart when you listen to this album. Like Mikey is there for whatever they didn't do for him in OU812 because you can't hear any bass in that album. They more than made up for it in balance. And I think this song is part of, before I name my number one, the reason why I think sonically this album is one of the best ones to listen to. When they said they were going to remaster this album, I didn't care. Didn't matter to me. It still sounds great. It sounds as great as it did today as it did in 1994, 95. So yeah, Amsterdam is a fantastic song.
I can't disagree. I love that I'm here. I don't know who's playing it. I love that I'm hearing it right now. It's an amazing song.
Wait, you're hearing it right now?
You're hearing it?
I'm not,
because I'm not hearing it.
Are you playing it?
I'm not playing
it. No. Yeah, I'm hearing it right now. Am I playing it in the background? That's funny.
Are you feeling
got nothing?
How much did you drink before we started this?
No, I literally, somebody's playing this song right now. I'm hearing it in my headphones.
It's not us, I don't think.
It's not me.
That's hilarious. I got to find out what window is open somewhere then, because I'm totally hearing it right now. All right, hang on. That's hilarious.
Might be the weirdest thing we've talked about on this podcast.
Well, what's even weirder is the fact that you guys aren't hearing it. Oh, there it is. Hey, look, that's hilarious. So, wow, that's funny. So, I told you I was watching earlier. I was watching the first night of Pensacola. That show.
It's on video in the background.
It's in a YouTube. It's in a tab in the background, and when you started talking about it, Pip, it started playing. That's freaky.
Wow. That's weird.
Like literally as you started talking about it, it started playing in the tab in the background. And I just assumed you hit play and it started. Wow, that's fucked up. That's
next
weird.
Week, top 5 haunted podcasts.
Right?
That's your topic.
Next week,
number
brought to you
one,
by Scare
the
Tissue,
balance
right?
edition.
Yeah. So my, let's see, I guess we're at my number 2, huh? So we're to the, like I said, I've said a couple times, we're to the point in these albums where it really kind of what you're bringing to the table as the listener. My number 2 is Not Enough. So 1994, 1995, I'm at college. I'm dating my high school sweetheart. My high school sweetheart is not there. Long distance relationship. Not enough for me. If you listen to that song, if you listen to the lyrics, and if you think back to a younger Chewie in love in 1995, right? Who has, and this is gonna sound super silly, but who has been dating this girl for a year, this girl who by the way, is my wife now of 25 years. I'd been dating her for a year at that time. It was very emotional to go away to college. We've been away, been apart. And this album comes out and there's these songs, there's these ballads, there's these love songs on here that are, you hear what love can't do. Don't tell me what love can do, this, that, and then you get Not Enough, right? And if you listen to the lyrics of that song, and I understand that that's still kind of a negative song in terms of the love. It's not When It's Love. It's not these love ballads. But to me, that one really hit me at a time in my life when I really needed to, again, I'm a big lyrics guy, and that one just really spoke to me at a time in my life when I was missing my girl. You know what I mean? I'm 600 miles away from the girl that I love. Yeah. It just touched me and to this day. And in fact, I remember that was the only, when we went to go see the Balance album, the tour back home in Cleveland that summer, Amanda went with me to that show. It was the only time she ever saw Van Halen with me. And I just remember like kind of sitting there on the lawn at Blossom, like literally just kind of serenading her, singing that song to her. And it's super cheesy, but yeah, it's just got a special place in my heart. Not enough. Number two.
When it has a personal connection with what you're going through in your life and who you're with and what your circumstances are, then I think that it forms a connection that you can't really deny at that point. So
Yeah.
I think that that's great. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I do
Yeah.
think that, you know, lyrically, this is something that I think he did okay with this one. I think he was going for something a little bit bigger than what he usually tried to attack with, you know, your standard power ballad, right? It didn't come across in the same way, but that's not a bad thing. It just meant that he was taking a different approach to it. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yep. So you related your number two to where you were in college
Yes.
emotionally. I'm going to relate my number one to where I have been recently and where our world is now and where the band was then. But my number one is Feeling, right? The last song on the album. In college, this would have never been the case. Zero chance. However, these lyrics have a very, very I might get emotional talking about this, but I think it talks about where the band was then. However, it's a 6.5 minute song. I will say the solo in the middle of this one is my favorite. Pip, you talked about solos. I think you get halfway through the song and their solo is great. But I'm going to read some lyrics because I got them on my screen. Feeling, no, don't like what I've been told I'm feeling, right? Feeling what no one else will ever know I'm feeling. But it gets a little funny after that, where it says black is white and white is black, politicians smoking crack, John Paul's all bulletproof. It puts me through the roof. I think it talks about where the world was. Mm-hmm. Right? We're bulletproofing the Pope and we're smoking crack as politicians, all these things back then. But if you take this song and put it in today's world, I had a health scare a couple years ago, and I was in a dark spot. Like, people told me how I should think or feel, and they had no idea where I was at. But I did. And I couldn't align what they thought I was and where I thought I was and what I felt and what they thought I should feel. And I don't know. This song is very personal to me. And it's the last song. I've never loved the last song on any album, ever. Historically speaking, I think number 7 in any track, like on a CD, number 7.
It's always a throwaway, right?
It's always
song. Yeah. It's always the song you skip.
Yeah. No, I always love number 7. I always never listened to the last song. I was like, I never even get there. But this one today, Feeling, my number one song. I told Pip yesterday on the phone, we talked for, I don't know, 5 minutes, and we just decided to stop talking because everything we were talking about was going to be good material for the podcast. So we just like, all right, we'll talk tomorrow. And we just hung up. But I was getting down this path of what this meant to me, and I didn't want to say it, so I didn't. But it's a very emotional song for me.
I think that's awesome. I think that's great. I could totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, not because I've had a similar experience. I certainly wouldn't, compare anything in my life to kind of what you've gone through lately. But I do think that this feels like a very heartfelt attempt in a different way for Sammy to kind of express what's going on. And I really like how you sort of framed it around like, this is what was going on back in the mid 90s, politicians smoking crack. I assume that was Marion Barry and, a lot of the things that were wrong with the world at the time. And, today's what's going on today, it seems even more crazy, significantly so than, what was going on at the time there.
If only we could be dealing with today just politicians smoking crack. If that was
wouldn't that be wonderful?
Right? I mean,
it'd be probably legal in most states if that was the only problem we ever had.
Pretty soon, yeah.
We would have made it legal by now.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't even be a problem anymore. But
I mean, can you imagine what the song "Feelin'" can you imagine what those lyrics would be today? Like, it's
Oh my,
crazy
no.
because
Well,
I think they're very well representative of that time, but like today,
yeah,
it would be
Yeah.
insane. And I think I just really think it's awesome, Jeff, that you were able to find a way to sort of relate that to, your own personal life, not just the culture and what was going on and the zeitgeist and all the stuff, but like you were able to kind of relate to it and connect to it in a way that it was probably meant to be, that ways that I couldn't do it, and maybe Chewie couldn't do it either. So I think that's amazing. I think that's awesome.
yeah. Well, it's weird to get to a spot where I was 140 pounds and I couldn't get out of bed and I couldn't eat solid food. I was just so many things happening in a time where our world was in the dumps in 2020, and my whole condition wasn't related to 2020. It was related to something else, but it was overlapping the worst time in our history. And it just weird that I feel like I'm very optimistic. I'm very positive. I love people. I love being around people. I love the idea of being around people. I just love life, to be able to get to the point where my body hurt so bad, my brain was so in the dump, all these things were so bad. This song just has words that really resonate with that time in my life. And again, 2024, today, this is my number one.
It's an awesome song.
Yeah.
And you and I, Jeff, we talked about some of this stuff a couple weeks ago when we were together. I love the fact, this is going to sound weird, but I love the fact that this is your number one. You know what I mean? Like, for kind of what, like the journey that you've gone through to get to that as your number one, right? Because who gives a fuck? It's a podcast. But like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think that's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool. Just by process of elimination, Pip, I know what your number one is, but I want to hear why it's your number one.
So my number one, and
Yeah.
I feel like it might be surprising for some people, but Seventh Seal is actually my
Yeah.
number one, because I feel like it sets the tone for the album. I think you actually said those words earlier when you were talking about this song. It means, I'm not going to pretend like lyrically it's the most in-depth thing, but I do think he tries really hard on this to, yeah, when this is the first song on the new Van Halen album, you really have to think, okay, where are they going with this? Because it's not about banging chicks and drinking a lot and going to Cabo Wabo and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is a very, very different version of this band right out of the gate. And I think that I've talked a lot about how impressed I have been sonically about how this album was produced. This song is the number one example of how impressive this album is, just to listen to, just to funnel it through my headphones, because you've got 16, 17, 18 seconds of the Gregorian monks chanting, and then that drop that Jeff talked about earlier, that bass drum that kicks in by Alex, and the entire fucking world explodes, and this album begins. It really begins. And for the longest time, whenever I was in the market to buy a new vehicle, I would bring the CD with me everywhere I went, and I would put this song in.
I love it.
And the guy just, the guy from the dealership would kind of look at me. I'm like, look, I don't give a shit about brakes. I don't care about reliability. If this stereo sucks, I'm not buying this car. And I would crank Seventh Seal as loud as it went. And when that fucking drop happens and when that bass hits, and if that song doesn't absolutely rattle my nuts up into my throat, I don't want the vehicle. And that's just the way that it is. So I love the way this song sounds. I love the power and the emotion that is just all over this song. The way that Eddie plays, the way that he announces himself on this album with his guitar, and this very, very different sound that we have in balance as it compares to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Like, his sound has adjusted and adapted significantly since 5150, and it's going to get even more different after this, and it's going to get much worse in my opinion. But this is this is idyllic. This is exactly where his guitar needs to be, in my opinion. And I love everything about the way that this song makes me feel. The only thing that I don't like is the way that is what I mentioned earlier. I don't think it translates as well live. It doesn't. I think that Sammy's vocals are better on this song than anything else on the album. And it's a lot harder to sing live because it's a lot of sustained screaming and things like that. But I just fucking love this song. I love the way that it kicks off everything that you're getting ready to hear by saying, "Hey, here we are. This is what Van Halen in the mid 90s is going to look like and sound like." So, get ready. Here it is.
I can't disagree with any of that. And as you're talking through it, Pip, I'm going through the Van Hagar songs in my head. I can't think of another song that sounds like this song from any of Sammy's albums. I just can't think of one.
I almost said something very controversial in that it's one of my favorite opening songs in the Van Halen catalog as far as like opening songs. Now, I can't go against 5150. I can't go against, Hello Baby and all that stuff like that.
Oh, baby.
Right. Like
Yeah, you
that
can't.
that one
I'm
is
sorry.
that one hits home, but like this is a very, very close second for me because I just love the way this punches a hole through your heart
It's
in the first 20
Okay,
seconds.
pound cake. Okay, there's a few.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, no,
It's good. Pound cake's
you.
good.
You do
Pound
you,
cake's
Pip. You
good.
do you.
those are amazing. There's no song bigger than this song though in the
I
entire
agree.
Van Hagar catalog.
Right.
There's not a
And
bigger song.
and I talked about Michael Anthony's bass and Alex's drums.
Yeah.
Everything is so well represented here. And it still, again, the 1995 version of this song still sounds better than anything in their catalog, sonically speaking. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about what's a
Yeah.
good song or great lyrics or how it's sung. I'm just saying like the production aspect of it. I don't think anything it's hard to beat this, especially 5150, which I love with all my heart, but it's even after the remaster, it just doesn't punch, to my ears the way that this one does.
That'd be an interesting podcast to talk about the opening songs of Van Halen albums. I
Sure,
might agree
sure.
with you, Jeff.
That-
I might put Pound Cake up there. But anyways, okay. So my number one, it's Take Me Back, Deja Vu. Obviously, you both have talked about it. This one to me is another one of those that I will attribute to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. I remember very vividly getting in the car in my Jeep one evening and driving around Bloomington and thinking about just kind of what life would look like after I graduated, right? And it was I'm gonna get a house, I'm gonna have a family, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna be out of college, like these kind of things, right? And I remember I was driving through areas of Bloomington and the surrounding. I mean, I drove probably 20, 30, 40 minutes outside of Bloomington that night. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was one of these like super humid mid 70s evenings, right? And I'm just going on around the kind of winding hilly roads around Bloomington, and I had this song on repeat. And again, it's like we've talked about it. You've got the acoustics at the front, you've got the headbanging in the middle, you've got the lyrics. And Sammy even said on the tour that this was based on a true story. I don't know, whatever. It is what it is. But like I kept thinking about kind of like what my life would be, and my girlfriend, my wife now, and like it was just it's one of these songs that I can't really put my finger on it other than to say it's just a very, very special song to me. And every time I hear it to this day, it brings me back to that night driving around Bloomington, Indiana. This probably was in 1997, 1998, that summer, and that's the beauty of music, right? It transports you back to a time and place. You can hear it, you can feel it, you can smell it, it's just like music is very, very powerful in that way. Yeah, Take Me Back, Deja Vu is my number one. I love this song. Absolutely love it.
Nobody's going to argue with anything on this. I think it is a really great song. It is I don't have as much of an emotional attachment to the same level as you do, but I could totally understand why. And I can understand it is a song that is sort of about, looking back and how that all, impacts you. And, as it relates to Bloomington, I feel like that's a really neat connection to have with that because,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that, that sort of permeates with, the time that I fell in love with Van Halen and, the time that I fell in love with that song and what it means to me and how it does sort of take me back almost literally to that point. So yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
choice.
Okay. I know we didn't we didn't like prep for this. So we're at the what 30th anniversary close of Balance?
Next
Close to
year,
it? Next year.
January of 95 will
Yeah.
be the 30th anniversary of Balance, just in case
Fuck.
we wanted to feel a little bit older than we
A little
actually
bit older.
are.
So just like off the top of your head, I know Jeff and I have both said it's not our favorite Van Halen, or it's not our favorite Van Halen album. Like, but where does it fit? Like, is it? And again, I'm not looking for people to rank all of the albums or even all of the Hagar albums. Let's just say, for argument's sake, like where does it fit in the Hagar albums? Again, just like real quick off the top of our heads, we could do an entire podcast about ranking Van Halen albums, but like, is it in the middle? Is it the bottom? I mean, there's only so many Sammy albums within the Van Hagar catalog.
They're almost in order
Okay.
that they came out.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I would go 5150, OU 812, Cardinal Knowledge, and then this.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Pip, what do you think?
I think this is my second, to be honest. If you
Yeah.
if you rank them in order of what you listen to, I don't revisit OU812 or Foreign Lawful Carnal Knowledge as much as I revisit this one.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think this is my number two, and I have to say that we talked about sort of all the darkness around this and the the foreboding of the breakup of the band. I remember having listened to this album around that time thinking, wow, I can't wait to hear what's going to happen next
What's next?
for
Yeah.
Van Halen. And I can't even really fathom what would have been next if Sammy would have stayed with the group. I think it's a very interesting question, but I wouldn't even know how to articulate what it would have sounded like. And maybe, and this is perhaps very controversial for Van Halen fans, maybe it's better that Sammy left when he did, because if we were going to get Van Halen 3 only with Sammy singing it, I don't think it would have been very good. I think, well, I mean, Van Halen 3 was terrible. Well,
So are we going to rank Van Halen lead singers from 3 to 1? I'm going to go first with number 3, Gary Cherone.
Well, look, I love Gary Cherone. I think he's a fantastic singer. He's a terrible fit for Van Halen, but the guy can sing and he is really, really good. But yeah, he didn't work for that. But like, I don't think he was the problem with Van Halen 3. I think the problem was the fact that the band was producing themselves at that point, and Eddie's guitar sound was terrible. It was the worst guitar sound I've ever heard in my life. And I just I can't even imagine what Sammy's vocals over any of that would have been. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise that things just weren't working in the right direction there. But I guess we'll never know. Not really sure. We would get one more song from Sammy. After this, it would be the Humans Being song from the Twister soundtrack. And that was honestly, that was fantastic. That was amazing. That was a song that if it had been on Balance would have made it a significantly better album. But, it was written after and it turned out to be the death rattle for the band at that point. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of wonder what things would be like, but yeah, I guess that would be my number two. I'm taking up a lot of space though. What do you think, Chewy?
And it's weird. 5150, I gotta put as number one. Balance, I think, would probably be number two. And then I would go OU812 and Fuck. And again, it's not because I don't love those albums, because I do. Yeah, I think probably on the strength of Deja Vu, Not Enough, and Feelin'. I think I would probably put this as number 2. 5150 to me is almost a perfect album. Like you can listen to it beginning to end. OU812, I think there's a couple stinkers in there that just kind of don't fit, and you know, and even fuck, there's a couple on there that I don't really care for. But you know what, Pip, I think you're right, man. Like I don't know that I would have wanted to see another, in retrospect, I don't know that I would have wanted to see another album with Sammy and Alex and Ed, because I think, here's my perception. I might be wrong. My perception of why the band broke up is it was Alex and Ed more than it was Sammy. I might be wrong. I don't know that for sure. And the reason I say that is like Ed went on to make some really, really great music with other musicians. Alex and Ed really didn't. Like after Sammy left, they didn't really make any great music, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Alex hadn't done anything since Van Halen. Eddie obviously passed away. Michael Anthony, I think, is the kind of glue that holds everything together. He's always great, but I don't know that I would have wanted to see that. I'm still really bummed that they've never had a version of Van Halen. You know, they're not going to now, but I would have liked to have seen a version of Van Halen with Wolfgang and Michael Anthony and Sammy and Alex. I would have liked to have seen that. I don't think they'll ever do it, but I think that could be a really nice tribute to the Van Hagar era of, you know, maybe you throw Vic Johnson in there to play lead. You know, I don't know where Wolfie fits in there with Michael and with, you know, like, but I would like to have seen that. I don't think we'll ever get it, but yeah,
No.
I don't know. Yeah. Long story short, I'd put Balance at number 2 of the Van Hagar albums.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I
So,
think yeah, I'm definitely in alignment with that. I don't think I finished my my list, but I would probably put Carnal Knowledge and then OU812 is probably the last for me. I mean, I think
okay.
it's got some good songs, but I think there are more throwaway songs on that one than maybe For Unlawful
Probably.
Carnal Knowledge. But I don't know.
I think you guys make some good OU812 points. There might be some throwaways on there.
It's a harder album to listen to because it just doesn't sound good for me. Like it's
Yeah.
so devoid of anything Michael Anthony, and he's, you know, he's so
Yeah.
good. He's such a huge component of that band, and the fact that there is, I mean, listen to that album, like even the remasters, there's just not enough bass. Like he's not there. And I think that they
Well,
did that intentionally for whatever reason, not to fuck with him, but just because
I mean,
whatever, that's
it
how
comes
they
on
do it.
strong with Mine All Mine. Like,
Yeah, right.
not a lot of bass. It's very trebly.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine how powerful that song would be with more of
with
Michael
Mike,
Anthony in
oh
that
my
background.
God.
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
And that is a great song. That is a fantastic song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, between that, Sucker to 3-piece, and
I mean,
what
I
else
love
is on
Cabo
that?
Wabo. I love When It's Love.
Cabo Wabo's great. And
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Finish What You Started has this feel to me that's like in Amsterdam. That those songs kind of have that same intro feel,
Yeah,
like
it's a very
kind
it's a
of
very
fun and
poppy.
poppy
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's got a
Yeah.
groove. You can kind of bounce to it a little bit.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's see. We've done almost 2.5 hours. So I think it's time to put a bow on this one. Mr. Tyler, it has been a pleasure. And my friend, I don't want to talk for Pip, but I will. You are welcome on this podcast anytime you want to join us, my friend, because it has been awesome to hang out with you for a couple hours tonight.
You know what? I think I've listened to enough podcasts to know there's a skill set involved in being a part of them. And I think you guys have it. I hope I participated well in that. And there's a high risk of over talking and all these things that we might have done a little bit of, but I love it. You guys talk a lot about things that I might not have good input in. Look, Road to WrestleMania, I don't know if I got a lot of input into that, but there are going to be things. If we could set up some album discussions like this,
we
give me
got
a
it.
1 week heads up. I'm on it. We're going to have fun with it. I would love it. And I know maybe we go from 3 to 8 listeners in the next couple months. I don't know.
Well,
There you
that's
go.
a pretty lofty, but we'll see what we
Well-
can do. But I definitely love the idea. I want to get more music on this podcast for sure. We have talked a lot about it, but we've kind of bounced through other stuff as well. But hey, I'm always looking for a good excuse to get some other perspectives, and I think this has been so much fun, and I'm super psyched that you were able to jump on here. I'm really glad that we were able to talk about something that we all are very passionate about and love very much, which is, Van Halen, specifically the Sammy Hagar era of it. And I certainly hope that it's not the last time we get an opportunity to do that.
No, I don't know if there's ever been a Van Halen balance discussion that's been this deep and this long. Period.
I'm gonna assume
And-
not. And regardless, this is the best one for sure.
Okay, so real quick, I know 2.5 hours is a long time, but my number one was Feeling. Where did that land for you, Pip?
Feeling was 6 for me, so it
And
was
how about you, Chewy?
halfway.
Number 3. Number three.
Okay. What
Yeah.
Pip, what was your number one then?
My number
wanna
one was
overlap all these.
seventh seal.
Seventh Seal. For me, that was number 6.
Okay,
Yep.
so flip flop there.
And for
Yeah.
me, it was number 4.
Okay.
And my number 1 was Take Me Back, Deja Vu.
Mhm.
And that was number 3 on that.
Yep. And that's number 5 for Pip. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting.
that bottom tier, like I said, that bottom tier was
We knew
pretty
that-
damn close. Yeah, for all of us.
We
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah, for
we
sure.
did.
Yeah, bottom 3.
So, all right. That being said, that's Mr. Pip. That's Jeff Tyler. I'm Chewy. This has been the 411 for 406. We'll talk to you soon. Aloha.
Adios, muchachos.
Adios.